I never set out to be a movie star. Honestly, I didn't even want it. To me, the people in LA, in the film industry, seemed lost, broken. I didn't want to become one of them. I never dreamed of becoming someone like Goldie Hawn, the woman who once made the entire world laugh. And now, it's that same smile that makes our hearts ache. She began as the bright-eyed blonde who lit up Hollywood, and over the years, became a symbol of strength, freedom, and joy for an entire generation. She lived her life under the brilliance of the spotlight, only to now find herself facing the quiet shadow of her twilight years. At 79, her health is declining, her memory fading, and the fractures behind what once appeared a perfect life are starting to show. How does someone who once made the world believe in happiness begin to forget the very moments that built her legend? Behind the fame and glamour is still Goldie Hawn, quietly fighting to hold on to her own story. Goldie Jean Hawn was born on November 21st, 1945, in a small, worn-down home on the edge of Washington, D.C. The roof leaked, cold winds slipped through cracked windows, and rainwater tapped rhythmically into pans placed beneath the drips. Her family wasn't wealthy, except when it came to music. Her father, Edward Rutledge Hawn, of English and German heritage, led a small band, performing at parties far beyond the family's means. He'd return home late, carrying with him the scent of music halls and tired dreams. Her mother, Laura Steinhoff, the daughter of Hungarian Jewish immigrants, ran a modest dance school on their ground floor. The studio was cramped, its mirrors always foggy, its tiles scuffed, but to little Goldie, that space was a world of magic. At just 3 years old, she began to dance, wobbling on her toes to the sound of her mother's old piano. Laura didn't just teach her daughter how to dance. She taught her to express stories through movement, a skill that would define Goldie for the rest of her life. Outside the warmth of that studio, life was harder. Her parents fought often over money. Goldie and her sister, Patty, shared a narrow bed under a quilt stitched together from scraps. There was also a silent sadness in the house. A brother, Edward Jr., lost in infancy. His name was never spoken, but his absence haunted every corner. Goldie would sometimes sit alone, imagining him beside her, trying to make him laugh. Perhaps that's when she first learned a truth that would guide her forever. A smile can soothe even the deepest pain. At 10, Goldie was cast in the Nutcracker with the Monte Carlo Ballet, an extraordinary achievement for a little girl from a leaky roof house. Backstage, surrounded by worn point shoes and the scent of powder, she felt the stage lights warm her skin. In that moment, she later said, I knew this was where I belonged. But dreams didn't make life easier. Her father lost his job. Her mother worked longer hours, teaching more students just to keep the lights on. Goldie wore dresses sewn from old curtains. Classmates teased her. They call me a clown, she said. So I laughed, because if they were laughing with me, they weren't laughing at me. That laugh became her armor, and eventually her identity. At 19, she left American University, trading unfinished drama lessons for her own small ballet studio. A humble space with peeling paint, a broken piano, and a cracked mirror. She loved teaching, but inside, she knew she wanted something more. She didn't just want to move to music. She wanted to be heard, to be seen. She wanted to make people feel the beat of her heart. In the summer of 1966, she saved $250, spent $200 on a tiny poodle, and flew alone to California. Her suitcase was old and creaked when she lifted it. Inside were a few costumes and a diary. She wrote, If anyone doubts the existence of God, they just need to sit where I am now, between the sky and hope. As the plane flew over the desert, the sunlight turned the sand to gold. Her future shimmered, distant and uncertain, but undeniably hers. Her first months in California were difficult. She lived in cheap rooms, ate instant noodles, drank bad coffee. Once, her old '59 Chevy broke down in the Nevada desert. She had just $50 left and her little dog. A Vietnam vet stopped to help. They shared a sandwich. He dropped her a roadside motel. As the sun set in pinks and reds, she felt, for the first time, a strange sense of hope. That was when I believed that even the worst moments can lead to something beautiful, she said. She worked any job she could find, chorus girl, backup dancer, small-time TV appearances, and in 1967, she landed a role on Good Morning World. Her character, the ditzy blonde, seemed like nothing, but Goldie made it unforgettable. In 1968, she joined Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and America fell in love. Her painted face and infectious laugh made her a symbol of a new kind of woman, free, bold, unafraid. But behind the laughter was still the little girl who had learned to smile just to survive. Then came her film debut, Cactus Flower, 1969. Her portrayal of Toni Simmons, a fragile, heartbroken young woman, earned Goldie an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Ironically, she didn't attend the ceremony. She was in London filming There's a Girl in My Soup and didn't even know she'd won. They called me at 4 a.m, she remembered. I jumped out of bed, laughed like a maniac, then burst into tears. By the 1970s, Goldie was no longer just a dancer from D.C. She was the kind of star who could light up a room or an entire industry with one smile. On the set of There's a Girl in My Soup, she wore a plain white dress, her blonde hair catching the London sunlight. The director said, she didn't act, she lived. One day, she improvised a whole scene, and the crew was too stunned to cut it. 2 years later, Butterflies Are Free, 1972, proved she could blend vulnerability and strength with rare depth. Audiences saw what lay behind her charm, and loved her even more for it. The 1970s brought a string of hits. The Girl from Petrovka, 1974, Shampoo, 1975, Foul Play, 1978. She became the rare woman who could own the screen with grace, wit, and independence, even in a Hollywood still clinging to its old ways. Then came 1980. Goldie did something no one expected. She produced Private Benjamin. Studio execs laughed. Who's going to watch a lipstick-wearing girl crawling through mud, they asked. But Goldie didn't laugh. She made the film anyway. With a modest budget of $9.2 million, Private Benjamin brought in nearly $70 million and earned her Oscar and Golden Globe nominations for Best Actress. For the first time, Hollywood couldn't deny it. A woman could act, produce, and command the box office, while making us laugh and cry at once. More hits followed. Best Friends, 1982, Swing Shift, 1984, Overboard, 1987, where she met Kurt Russell, the man who would become her lifelong love. They filmed by the sea, talked late into the night, and built a bond that would last longer than most Hollywood marriages. In the 1990s, her stardom soared. Bird on a Wire, 1990, proved her box office power. But The First Wives Club, 1996, made her legendary. With a budget of $26 million, the film went on to earn $181 million worldwide, a huge triumph. More importantly, it resonated deeply with millions of women who saw themselves in its story, wounded, abandoned, yet still glowing with laughter. Behind the success, Goldie was much more than just an actress. She pushed for script changes, insisting the film be more than a tale of revenge against men, but rather a powerful statement of dignity and renewal. Before filming began, she, Diane Keaton, and Bette Midler made a rare agreement. None would outshine the others. When a movie premiered, critics hailed it as the midlife equivalent of Thelma and Louise, both fierce and healing. By the end of the 1990s, Goldie Hawn's movies had collectively grossed over $2 billion at the U.S. box office, adjusted for inflation, a milestone few actresses have reached. Yet at the crossroads of fame and everyday life, Goldie's private world began to unfold a dramatic chapter where love, stardom, and loneliness became deeply intertwined. Amid the glitz of Hollywood and endless applause, the blonde star was quietly searching for something simpler: understanding. Back in 1966, when Goldie was still an unknown young dancer, she met Gus Triconis, a man who had already made his mark in entertainment. Gus had been part of the Sharks gang in West Side Story, 1961, danced alongside Debbie Reynolds and the unsinkable Molly Brown, 1964, and famously performed with Elvis Presley in his iconic 1968 TV special. Two creative souls sharing the same birthday, November 21st, a coincidence that felt like destiny. They met in a rehearsal room, under fluorescent lights, surrounded by sweat and the jazz beats coming from an old speaker. Gus later told friends, "She has a kind of light you can't learn. It's in her eyes." Their love arrived like a dance, sudden, intense, and passionate. In 1969, just as Cactus Flower premiered and earned Goldie her first Academy Award, the couple quietly married on a beach in Honolulu. No grand gowns or celebrity guests, just the ocean waves, Hawaiian guitars, and two lovers believing love could soften Hollywood's harsh glare. But in the years that followed, life began pulling them apart. Goldie immersed herself in her career, constant travel, interviews, and the exhausting cycle of fame. Meanwhile, Gus shifted away from acting to directing, a quieter, less glamorous path. While Goldie accepted awards on stage, Gus sat at home in their modest Los Angeles apartment, poring over scripts beneath a yellow lamp. Distance grew through silent nights and missed calls, widening with every new film she made. In a 1976 People interview, Goldie admitted, "I was exhausted. I just wanted to disappear, go somewhere far away, like a Native American, where I could just sit still and meditate." On April 9th, 1973, they separated quietly, without bitterness, just two people heading different ways. "We weren't ready to marry again," she said, but fate was already preparing her next chapter. In the summer of 1975, on a plane, Goldie met Bill Hudson, the witty and rebellious guitarist from the Hudson Brothers. He had a spark that made Goldie laugh instantly. There was one catch. She was still legally married to Gus. In his memoir, Two Versions, The Other Side of Fame and Family, Bill recalled that their very first date actually included Gus. That awkward dinner felt like a misplaced scene in the wrong play and ended in silence. But the second date changed everything. At a Rolling Stones concert, thick with cigarette smoke and alcohol, Bill remembered a tray of white powder circulating, and Goldie, the ever-radiant star, joined in with a smile. They talked all night, sharing the loneliness behind their public images. By dawn, they belonged to each other, though on paper, she was still bound. Goldie has always denied any infidelity accusations, calling them the bitterness of an ex-man. Whatever the truth, just months later, on New Year's Eve 1975, she became engaged to Bill and filed for divorce from Gus on the same day. Her marriage to Gus officially ended in June 1976, closing a chapter both beautiful and painful. Gus received $75,000 in settlement, a modest sum compared to the love they once thought priceless. On July 3rd, 1976, Goldie married Bill Hudson in Tacoma Park, Maryland, in a small ceremony with close family, white flowers, and a few uneasy smiles. 3 months later, their son Oliver was born, followed by daughter Kate in 1979. On the surface, they seemed the perfect family. Happy magazine photos, little Kate's blonde hair peeking from behind her mother's shoulder, parties full of candles and laughter. But beneath the surface, cracks began to show. Bill struggled with his music career while Goldie's star rose higher. She once said, "Some men can't handle it when their wives are more successful than they are." Jealousy, exhaustion, and a reckless lifestyle slowly eroded their bond. Bill accused Goldie of wanting an open marriage and claimed she kept him from seeing their children after she started seeing Kurt Russell. Goldie stayed silent, never retaliating, simply saying, "I don't need to prove anything anymore." In 1980, Bill filed for divorce, which was finalized in 1982. But the wounds of that breakup lingered for years. In 2015, their son Oliver posted a photo captioned, "Happy Abandonment Day." Bill responded in a Daily Mail interview, "Oliver and Kate are no longer my children. Remove the name Hudson from them." A cold, cutting line extinguishing any hope of reconciliation. The once vivid loves of Goldie Hawn, from Gus Triconis to Bill Hudson, had faded like smoke under the spotlight. The men came and went, but she remained, alone, standing between fame and heartbreak. Yet from those ruins, a new chapter was waiting. One where she would find the only man whose love wouldn't force her to choose between freedom and commitment, Kurt Russell. In 1968, on the set of the one and only genuine original family band, the American West glowed golden under the sun. Goldie, 21, was vibrant and full of life. Kurt, only 16, still carried the awkwardness of youth. They shared a few scenes, exchanged a few polite words, then parted ways. Goldie later smiled. He was adorable, but way too young. Both had partners then, and perhaps that was the end of it. But Hollywood loves a twist, and so does fate. 15 years later, in 1983, they met again on the set of Swing Shift. Neither was too young now. Goldie was an A-list star and single mother of two. Kurt was calm, grounded, and quietly strong from having known loss. What moved Goldie wasn't his looks or charm. It was seeing Kurt kneel down to tie Oliver's shoelaces and talk gently to Kate, his voice patient and warm, as if they were already family. He was wonderful with the kids, Goldie recalled. Everything felt easy. Their first date, after 15 years apart, was unlike any other. They had a few drinks, then spontaneously went house hunting. No keys, no plan, just two people caught up in the thrill of new love. They climbed in through a window, only to be caught by the police who thought they were burglars. At the station, they laughed uncontrollably while signing statements. It was a beginning both reckless and tender. The perfect start for Goldie and Kurt. From then on, they refused to rush. They chose to love deliberately and slowly. They never married, not from a lack of commitment, but out of respect for freedom. If you're independent, have your own job, your own finances, and love your freedom, Goldie said in 2016, then not getting married means that every morning you wake up beside someone. It's because you want to, not because you have to. For over 40 years, their family has been a beautiful mosaic. Many pieces, none out of place. Goldie brought with her Oliver Hudson, born September 7th, 1976, and Kate Hudson, born April 19th, 1979. Kurt had a son named Boston Russell, born on February 16th, 1980. In 1986, they welcomed Wyatt Russell, born July 10th, the child who symbolized the union of their two worlds. Yet, in reality, their love had already completed them long before that. Evenings at Goldie's home were always alive with laughter. Oliver was the family comedian, delivering jokes until everyone held their breath and then burst out laughing. Kurt taught the kids how to throw a baseball in the yard, while Kate strummed her guitar in the warm kitchen light. Goldie, dressed in her familiar old apron, hummed songs from her childhood as she cooked. In everyday life, they were a real family. On screen, they appeared together in Overboard, 1987, and later as the playful Mr. and Mrs. Claus in the Christmas Chronicles, 2018-2020. But their most precious memories were never captured on film. They lived in those simple, laughter-filled nights when love flowed as naturally as breathing. Each child carries a piece of that radiant spirit. Oliver Hudson, the family's jokester, transforms ordinary moments into delightful comedy through shows like Rules of Engagement, Nashville, and The Cleaning Lady. At home, he proudly calls himself the dad who loves to embarrass his kids, as he once joked on The Ellen Show alongside his wife, actress Erin Bartlett, and their 3 children, Wilder Brooks, Bobby Hawn, and Rio Laura. Oliver continues the family tradition of laughter as a form of love. Kate Hudson, with the smile she inherited from Goldie, made her mark in film. Her role as Penny Lane in Almost Famous earned her a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination. She charmed audiences in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Bride Wars, and Something Borrowed. Behind the scenes, Kate often expresses gratitude toward her mother and Kurt. They taught me that love means respect. And as a mother, the greatest lesson my mom gave me is never speak ill of your child's father. Boston Russell, Kurt's son with actress Susan Hubley, chose a quiet life away from Hollywood. Though out of the spotlight, he remains the invisible thread connecting the family. Kate once said, "The day I met Boston, I knew Kurt would be an important man in my life, and Boston would be the big brother I always needed. Wyatt Russell, Goldie and Kurt's youngest child, carries both their bloodline and talent. From 22 Jump Street to a standout role as John Walker in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Wyatt has proven he shines on his own. Soon, he will act alongside his father in Apple TV's MonsterVerse series. Off-screen, Wyatt is a devoted father to two sons, Buddy, born in 2021, and Boone Joseph, born in 2024. Dad still teaches my boys things I'm still learning myself, he says with a laugh. Goldie once said, "Raising children is teaching them how to raise their own children well." Indeed, in the Russell Hawn family, everything flows like a beautiful chain of love. Oliver brings laughter. Kate keeps the warmth alive. Boston offers peace. Wyatt carries the legacy forward with quiet dedication. Hollywood changes every day, but one thing has remained steady for 40 years. Every February 14th, Goldie and Kurt celebrate their own wedding day. No rings, no ceremonies, just a morning when they look at each other and say, "Today I choose you, and you choose me." If Goldie Hawn's life were a film, her love story with Kurt Russell would be its most beautiful scene. Their children would be the glowing epilogue, love passed down through generations in laughter, freedom, and the daily act of choosing each other anew. Now at 79, Goldie still stands in the light, quietly, without fanfare or cost. Her legacy is not only in her iconic roles in Cactus Flower, Private Benjamin, Overboard, or The First Wives Club, but in the message she leaves behind. A woman can be gentle yet strong, funny yet deep, and remain wholly herself amid Hollywood's power, desire, and illusions. "Don't tell me I can't," she once said with a laugh. "Just watch me." For over 50 years, Goldie Hawn has become a guiding star for generations of actresses, teaching independence, resilience, and the art of renewal in a world that never stops reinventing itself. At the 2025 Academy Awards, the Dolby Theater shone like a newly awakened star. When Goldie walked the red carpet beside Kurt, his arm gently supporting her, the crowd swelled with a wave of nostalgia. They didn't just see the comedy icon of the 1970s. They saw a woman who had weathered glory and heartbreak and could still smile under the harsh glare of the camera flashes. On stage, Goldie joined Andrew Garfield to present awards for Best Animated Feature. The room softened as Garfield, voice trembling, shared that she had once comforted his late mother. Goldie responded with a smile both playful and tender. "You know, I'm lucky I still get to make movies while I can still remember my lines." The audience burst into laughter, then fell silent as she took Garfield's hand and whispered softly, "Sweetheart, could you read this for me? I can't see a thing. Cataracts have got me." It was a moment both heartbreaking and full of love, pure Goldie. Yet, with her stage instincts intact, she opened the envelope herself and announced the winner. Flo, her voice clear, warm, and steady through the last syllable. Moments later, social media erupted. Some expressed concern, others joked harshly. But behind the scenes, those present knew, Goldie was still Goldie. Just before going on stage, she had slipped slightly, causing the crew to laugh, and quipped, "Don't worry, I just fell because I was overwhelmed with emotion." In the past 2 decades, Goldie has rarely appeared publicly. After her golden era, Cactus Flower, Private Benjamin, Overboard, The First Wives Club, she returned to the screen only a few times. Town and Country, 2001, The Banger Sisters, 2002, and After 15 Quiet Years, Snatch, 2017, with Amy Schumer, a light-hearted comeback. More recently, audiences have heard her gentle laugh as Mrs. Claus in The Christmas Chronicles and her soft narration in the documentary SPF 8. The 2025 Oscars were more than a film event. They were the homecoming of an artist's soul. The woman who once made the world laugh now brought tears, not from fading memory, but from the tender truth of time. Goldie Hawn, the little girl who danced ballet in a cramped Washington studio, is now an icon for generations. She has endured broken marriages, doubt, and lonely nights staring into the mirror, questioning her worth. She has faced prejudice, power, and pretense, and yet kept a heart that knows how to laugh and forgive. Now, her voice is huskier. Her memory sometimes falters like her steps, but the light in her eyes still shines bright. Not the glitter of fame, but the glow of a woman who has truly lived. Age comes for all of us, Goldie said once. But a smile, if you nurture it, will last forever. If any role, film, or smile of Goldie Hawn lingers in your memory, hold it close like a small candle. Because legends like her never truly disappear. They simply step behind the curtain, leaving laughter, light, and a gentle reminder. Fragility can also shine brilliantly.